So recently, Senator Bernie Sanders came out in strong defense of Representative Rashida Tlaib and Representatives Ilhan Omar over Israel's decision to deny them entry into the country. So now this is something that a lot of Congress people do. They go and they visit Israel. Chuck Schumer does this annual, I believe, Israel trip. The right wing goes to Israel all the time. And so, here's Ilhan Omar, who's a Muslim, Rashida Tlaib, uh, also wanting to go to the country to see what's going on. So now on Thursday, and by the way, it's because these two women are critics of the right wing Israeli government. So now on Thursday, President Donald Trump attacked Omar and Tlaib and pressured the Israelis to deny them entry. Shortly after, Netanyahu announced, we're going to do this, that. We're going to keep those two out of the country. So think about this, right? Israel's supposed U.S. ally. And yet these two congresswomen, because they have been critical, they have been vocal of the right wing government of Israel, are now banned from coming into the country. So Netanyahu basically pulled a Donald Trump move right in that regard. So now Bernie Sanders, who again is Jewish, right? He has decided that this is not going to stand, and he had this to say.
Well, I wish I could tell you, Ali, that I am shocked. I am not. We have a president who tragically is a racist, is a xenophobe, and who is a religious bigot. But the idea that a member of the United States Congress cannot visit a nation, which, by the way, we support to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, is clearly an outrage. And if Israel doesn't want members of the United States Congress to visit their country to get a firsthand look at what's going on, and I've been there many, many times, but if he doesn't want members to visit, maybe he can respectfully decline the billions of dollars that we give to Israel.
Damn. Nobody has ever actually said that on TV. Again, we give Israel billions of dollars in so-called aid, right? And they use that, of course, to build up their military. We basically paid for Iron Dome, which stops any sort of rocket attacks. I know there are rocket attacks that come out of Palestinian areas, but again, if you look at the sophistication, thanks in part to U.S. Investment versus the unsophistication of the attacks coming from from Hamas, look, they're not even equal. The show of force is not at all equal. Basically, they're throwing essentially rocks, whereas they have the Israelis have these incredibly expensive, gigantic missiles paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. So now that's a bit of a problem. Now, here's the thing: there was a point in Israel's history where they did need that money, right? They were beset on all sides with nations that were very, very hostile to them, that wanted to destroy them, right? Nowadays, thanks to us, partly, they're a regional power. And unfortunately, they're also under right wing leadership. And since they are under right wing leadership, they're using their regional power not for good things, not to promote peace, but to promote conflict, to promote war, because that's how right wingers tend to stay in power. So now they're oppressing Palestinians in the West Bank, of course, and they're also trying to push the United States into a war with Iran. Now, I much preferred the left wing government of Israel, but we haven't seen that in a long time. And the left wing government of Israel actually cared about peace. So now Bernie Sanders is saying, hey, look, we give all this money to Israel, right? What if we were to leverage that to start maybe having Israel go back into the direction of peace, to have people sit down? In fact, Sanders said this. He said, we need a Middle East policy which is even handed, which protects the independence and the safety of Israel, but also shows respect to the Palestinian people, many of whom in Gaza and elsewhere are suffering incredibly. Unemployment rate off the charts. People cannot leave their community. Basically, they live in an open air prison, essentially. And what I think, he said, that the United States should be doing, especially with the enormous amount of money we're spending there, is to demand that Israel and the Palestinian leadership sit down and start working out their differences and create a peace in that troubled region. Which is absolutely right, by the way. Bernie Sanders is basically the only person that's running for office that talks about this, that actually is brave enough to stand up to the right wing government of Israel and its backers in the U.S. government. Now, it probably helps that he's Jewish, right? But even so, the charges of anti Semitism continue to fly everywhere. And look, a lot of the critics don't actually mention that Bernie Sanders is Jewish. I wonder why. Maybe because it helps their case and tries to take away from his. But here's the thing, we need boldness on this issue because right now, Israel is ironically doing things to the Palestinians that had once been done to them. Now, if you don't see that, it's because you don't want to see that. And then, of course, there are people that are afraid of speaking out against that right wing government for fear of being labeled anti Semitic. And that's what's happened to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar whenever they criticize the Israeli government, and pretty much anyone else who criticizes the actions of the Israeli government, and they're setting up basically what is an apartheid state. Now, since then, right, Israel has granted Tlaib permission to visit, but with one caveat, that she not express her support for BDS. Now, what is BDS? That is boycott and divestment, basically. That's basically saying that we're not going to buy Israeli products. So that whole purpose of that is to say, look, we're going to vote for our wallet, or I'm sorry, we're going to vote with our wallet to make sure that you get the message that what you're doing right now is not good. That is a purely non-violent action. Now, critics of BDS say, "Oh no, that's anti-Semitic." No, you're literally voting with your wallet and saying, "We're not going to accept what you're doing." How is that anti-Semitic? Stop doing, oppressing the Palestinian people. Work out a peace agreement. Work towards a two-state solution, and you will not be boycotted anymore. I mean, again, whether you support BDS or not, we should at least, affirm people's right to be able to vote with their wallet without being called anti-Semitic. But anyway, her response to this, right, to that, I guess, attempted intimidation, and that's what this is, right? Because Rashida Tlaib has a family in the Palestinian area. She has her grandma. And so she wanted to go visit her family there. And so they said, well, you can come, but you got to give up everything that you are, everything that you believe in when it comes to BDS. Only then will we allow you to travel through our country. Her response was great because it's a flat out no. She said, quote, when I won, it gave the Palestinian people hope that someone will finally speak the truth about the inhumane conditions. I can't allow the state of Israel to take away that light by humiliating me and use my love for my Siti, which is her grandma, to bow down to their oppressive and racist policies. Silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants for me. It would kill a piece of me. That is why I love bold progressives. Again, most Democrats say, oh, I'm sorry, Israel. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I mean, please don't label me anti-Semitic. There's a lot of Jews in the United States that also do not see eye to eye with the Netanyahu government on this issue. There are numerous Jewish groups that right now are fighting and are saying, hey, we are not in support of what's going on in the Palestinian areas. We are not in support of this apartheid state that you have. We're not in favor of this. This is not what we stand for. And I'm glad somebody is giving them that voice and are standing up to this power, even though, at least in the government, it is extremely unpopular to do so. Again, you have AIPAC, that's one of the biggest donors to a lot of Democratic politicians as well as Republican politicians. They're an influence group. And what they do is they try to influence the government into passing, again, more aid to Israel, but also to defend when Israel takes these kind of actions that end up getting a lot of innocent Palestinian people killed. And unfortunately, that's what happens. And when you point that out, it is extremely unpopular in those circles. And the charges of anti-Semitism fly. But see, this is why Bernie Sanders And these progressives are real leaders. They're looking at this and saying, no, this is what's really happening. And I don't care what you call me. I don't care what kind of terrible things you say about us. We're actually working for the good of Israel and for the good of America and for the good of the Palestinian people. There's everybody that can win here, unless you're a member of a right wing that continues to use fear and violence and intimidation to continue to get votes and to get your way. This is why, again, I support Bernie Sanders. They will stand up and they will fight for the oppressed, no matter who they are or where they're located, because it's the right thing to do. And if the situation were reversed, if it were Jewish people being oppressed by Palestinians, we would be fighting the same fight. Because again, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're being oppressed unfairly, then progressives will always come to your defense. That's who we are. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.